I hate my life. My wife is a bitch and my daughter is her clone. My son so disliked my unwillingness to deal with all of this that he left home as soon as he turned 18. He knew what was going on and wanted no part of it. My daughter knew what her mother was like and decided she wanted to be just like her mom. I felt sorry for my daughter's poor husband. I realized I had made a mistake before my first wedding anniversary. Mildred seemed to think she was more attractive than she really was and was constantly flirting to bolster her self-esteem. The problem was that the flirting wasn't limited to flirting. Apparently, she didn't think there was anything wrong with sleeping with other men if I didn't know about it. The main problem was that I had always known. 26 years I knew, and 26 years I didn't say anything. I think it's easy to see why my son left. The big question, of course, is why didn't I leave? I wish I had a good answer. I didn't like what my wife was doing, and I didn't condone it. I was just too lazy or complacent to do anything about it. I cooked the meals, did the laundry, and cleaned the house. Mildred never turned me down for sex, and often initiated it herself. She was a nag and a real bitch, but I learned to ignore it. I believed I had no alternatives. Unfortunately, I was just a regular guy. My hair was thinning a bit. I needed bifocal glasses, and I was about 20 pounds overweight. The extra weight wasn't muscular, just flabby on my stomach. In addition, I had worked at the same job for 26 years. It was boring, and my career was stalled. The younger guys were smarter than me and had more ambition. I was working just to feed myself. I had no savings, no retirement plan, and the only insurance was what the company offered. We didn't even buy a house. We rented a house from my wife's brother. My future was as bleak as my past. Life sucked. Mildred was holding up a little better than I was. She did some sort of exercise regularly. She also watched her weight better than I did. She needed to stay in shape to be able to pick up a guy. I don't want to make it look worse than it really was. Mildred didn't go out and pick up guys for sex all the time. She had discreet affairs. It was only one guy at a time and maybe one or two different guys a year. I don't know if they eventually dumped her or vice versa. I didn't really care. At least she had the decency to never bring them into the house. I was never interested in other women. I had been hit on a few times over the years, but I just laughed it off. I was sure they would be disappointed if I responded to their flirting. It seemed like too much of a hassle to me. My daughter Julie was married to Milquetoast. Who am I to throw stones? She probably chose him because he reminded her of me. Shortly after their wedding, they had twins, beautiful little girls. They were adorable. But I couldn't escape the thought that they would end up like their mother and grandmother. What a shame. The only bright spots in my life were my secretary Joyce and our corporate mailman Rodney. Joyce wasn't really my secretary because she took care of the 6 reps in the office, but I felt like she took better care of me than the other 5 guys. Rodney was my ray of sunshine. I liked him because he had a good attitude. He never complained about anything and always had a smile on his face for me. I don't know if he was aiming for something in his career, but he seemed to enjoy what he was doing. Joyce and Rodney were pretty close in the office and seemed to always share gossip and daily jokes. I looked forward to spending my day with them, just as I looked forward to getting away from my wife. Joyce and I had worked together for 13 years now, and I still didn't know much about her. The 2 most important things I knew were that she was single and that she hated my wife. I never took any interest in the reasons behind these facts. Things got interesting one day when my daughter Julie burst into the office and announced that she had just signed up the twins for a scoliosis study. It seems that both girls had slight curvatures of the spine. Because scoliosis is hereditary, several groups have received large government grants to study how it is passed from generation to generation. She carefully explained how it could affect the heart as well as other medical problems, some of which were life-threatening. I realized she was very concerned. Part of the study involves looking at the genetic background of the subject's family. Julie proudly handed me a small padded envelope that contained a small plastic bottle and instructions on how to spit into the bottle and put the cap on. I always thought they used cotton swabs and took samples from the cheek. The envelope was prepaid and addressed. All Dad had to do was follow the instructions. She thanked me for agreeing to help and walked away smiling. What did that brat of the devil want? Joyce brought me a fresh cup of coffee to justify my inquisitiveness. She signed the kids up for some scoliosis research and she wants my DNA. You shouldn't talk so harshly about my wife. I thought you did those DNA tests 4 or 5 years ago. I did. It was done as part of the company's medical program. Weren't the tests good enough? They don't even know I did them. I was just checking to make sure the kids were mine before I made a new will. I can see why that might be a concern. Joyce smiled broadly. She seemed to take great pleasure in insulting Mildred every chance she got. Well, don't keep me in suspense. So, are you the father or not? Julie and Jason are my children. What else can I say? With that kind of luck, you should play the lottery. There's nothing wrong with Jason. He's just sick of the whole situation, and he's pissed that his father didn't fix the situation. Joyce, you need to stop belittling Mildred all the time. I'm sorry, boss. I just can't help myself. Are you going to pee in the bottle? It's spit, Joyce. They want me to spit in the bottle. As if on cue, Rodney entered the office with his daily delivery of mail and notes. Joyce's eyes lit up. Rodney, kid, you're just in time. John needs you to spit in that bottle for him. I think Rodney was as surprised by Joyce's remark as I was. I knew this research was important, but suddenly Joyce's words seemed like a great idea. I handed Rodney the vial, and Joyce and I watched as he carefully placed the DNA inside. The label on the vial says John Ritter. I don't mind if you guys keep me out of trouble. Not a chance, Rodney. John and I will make sure you don't have any. Joyce lowered the bottle into the envelope and sealed it. I'll make sure this gets mailed today, boss. She was grinning from ear to ear as she left my office. Rodney looked puzzled. You know she has a thing for you, Mr. Ritter. What? Joyce always says nice things about you, and I can see the way she looks at you when you don't notice it. She's said a couple times that she wishes you weren't married. I'd always considered Joyce and I friends, but I'd never thought she was interested in a different kind of relationship. I was flattered by Rodney's words, and I realized I was smiling to myself. Joyce would be a hell of a better companion than Mildred. I decided I'd better pay more attention to what was going on. Thanks for your help, Rodney. I'll see you this afternoon. The next few weeks went on as normal. I tried to be a little more attentive to Joyce after hearing Rodney's words. I found it odd that my secretary had a higher opinion of me than my wife. For the first time in my married life, I saw reason to consider divorce. I had always been very complacent in my marriage. The more attention I paid to Joyce, the better she treated me. I liked that. On Friday afternoons, I usually tried to sneak out of work a little early. There was no particular reason. I just started doing it years ago and saw no reason to stop. No one ever complained. When I got home, I settled into a soft chair and heard my wife and daughter arguing in the kitchen. It was obvious that they were not even aware of my presence at home. With difficulty, but I managed to pick up scraps of conversation. No, Julie, I have no idea who it could be. I was sure it was your father. My father? Damn it, Mom, it's not my father. I assumed at this point she had gotten the DNA test results and was holding them in her hands. I have no idea who my father is, and worse, my own mother has no idea who he is. There was a lot of mumbling and confusion when they both spoke at the same time, but I was still able to make some things out. They can't even name this DNA sample. It's not in any database. If you can't help me, who the hell can? I enjoyed listening to my daughter beat her mother. Payback is hell. It would have been nice to hear the whole conversation, but I had to settle for just part of it. For the next few minutes, I couldn't make out what was being said. The last thing I heard was something about another test on Tuesday morning and the slamming of the door when Julie left. Sooner or later, I would have to tell them the truth, but for now, I was enjoying the moment. It was really exciting and was the highlight of my week. Joyce will be thrilled when I tell her all about it on Monday. I was a little disappointed that I would have to wait until Monday to tell her. After dinner, Mildred announced that she had to meet with one of her friends who was having problems in her personal life. She didn't know how late she would be and asked me not to wait. I doubted she had any friends with problems in their personal lives, but thought it was a great time to visit Joyce. John, what the hell are you doing here? You should have called first. I look like shit. I'm sorry, I couldn't help myself. I thought you might want to know how your little trick with the DNA sample went. Joyce looked good. She was wearing sweatpants and a pullover shirt. It was the first time I'd seen her without makeup, and she looked really good. I wondered why I hadn't noticed how attractive she was before. I saw her every day at work, but never really looked at her closely. "Do you want coffee or beer?" "I'll take a beer, but if I drink more than 3, I won't be able to make it home." "Okay. I'll make sure there are at least 4, maybe 6 in the fridge." 6 beers and I'll fall asleep." "Don't worry, I've got a big bed." Damn if Joyce didn't hit on me. I didn't come here for that. I just wanted to gloat about the situation between my wife and daughter. Joyce wanted to get me into bed, even though I was drunk. I'm a pretty bad drinker, mostly because I rarely do it. We started by talking about the DNA trick and laughing about the results. After that, the conversation took a different direction. In 3 hours, I drank all the beer I could handle and felt no pain. Joyce convinced me that I couldn't drive home. Eventually, we ended up in bed. We slept together twice that night and then again the next morning. When I got home, Mildred was still in bed. I took off my shoes and lay down on the couch. The next thing I knew, my wife was shaking me. "What are you doing here? Get up and take a shower, and if you're still hungover, use the bed. If you're going to go out drinking, at least learn how to do it right." Mildred couldn't imagine me spending the night with another woman. She assumed I'd gone to a bar, gotten drunk, and staggered home. I thought the whole thing was ridiculous. I knew I would do it more often from then on. Since it was Saturday, we had to mow the lawn and wash the cars. I worked all day and felt great. It was like a whole new world had opened up in front of me. I now realized that I no longer had to resign myself to a life of humiliation and nagging. I had no trouble at all imagining life without Mildred. I had no trouble imagining life with Joyce, and decided that the next time I saw her, it would be no more than 2 beers. I thought the weekend would never end, but eventually Monday came. Joyce was smiling and looking better than ever. We decided that we were going to be very quiet with the rest of the staff. Everything was working out until Rodney came in. He must have had some kind of 6th sense because he immediately realized that something had changed between Joyce and me. He didn't say anything, but just looked at both of us with the biggest grin you've ever seen. We both smiled back at him and he understood. I think it made his day. No one else in the office had a clue about anything. I knew from the conversation between Mildred and Julie that something was going to happen Tuesday morning. Joyce made Rodney spit into one of the small cups from the drinking fountain. I carefully placed the nasty thing in the top left drawer of the desk. I clamped the edges of the cup to make a funnel. Around 10 o'clock, Mildred arrived unexpectedly, or so she thought. Joyce politely escorted her into my office and left the door open. "John, there's been a problem with the DNA sample you gave Julie 2 weeks ago. She needs another one. I brought one of the bottles with me. Do you mind?" "Of course not. What was wrong with the previous one? It didn't seem that complicated." "I'm not sure, but the sample was somehow contaminated and couldn't be used. This will only take a second." Mildred handed me the bottle and sat down, waiting for me to spit. At that moment, Joyce slipped through the door. "Mildred, if you have a parking ticket, I can validate it for you." While Mildred rummaged through her purse and held out the ticket to Joyce, I quickly filled the bottle from my glass without looking. I brought the bottle to my mouth when my wife turned her head toward me. I was as deft as a Vegas magician as I capped the bottle and handed it back to her. I had to admit, there was no doubt about it. It looked like I'd spit into the vial. "Here you go," said Joyce, handing Mildred a validated ticket, and walked back to her desk. Mildred smiled, taking the vial and dropping it into an envelope. The inside of my desk drawer was a mess. My secretary and I spent the rest of the day giggling like schoolboys. Joyce didn't complain as she cleaned out my desk drawer. Over the next few weeks, Joyce and I went out a few times, but never stayed overnight. Mildred thought I was turning into a drunk, spending all my free time at the local bars. I saw no reason to let her think otherwise. Some nights when I was with Joyce, we didn't have sex, we just talked or watched a movie. When we did have sex, it was great. I always had at least 2 beers before I went home to Mildred's house. It was Wednesday morning when my brother-in-law, Wilbur Connor, came into my office. "John, do you have to help me? I'm losing my mind. Between Julie and your wife, our house has become a war zone." "Wait a minute, Will. What the hell are you talking about? What's the battle? Wilbur was nervous. He was my son-in-law, but we never had father-son conversations. He was always a little reserved or withdrawn. It was hard for him to come to me with this conversation. I didn't want to discourage him. They were always arguing about the DNA tests Julie needed for scoliosis research. Thank goodness I'm at work most of the day. Could you be a little more specific? I quietly turned on the intercom so Joyce could overhear. I don't know for sure, but it looks like none of the DNA samples you turned in matched either Julie's or the twins' DNA. That really upset Julie. She always thought you were her biological father, and now she's not so sure. If I've touched on a sensitive subject, please let me know, Mr. Ritter, and I'll stop. I just assumed you were aware of certain things. Don't worry about that, Will. I'm just wondering what's going on. I hate to admit it, but I've had some suspicions myself over the years. It was a lie, of course, but he didn't need to know that. Julie had Mildred take DNA samples from 3 other men. None of those samples matched. Of course, that sent Julie into a rage. She accused her mother of being a whore who had slept with so many men that she couldn't remember their names. Mildred was in tears the other day. I have to agree, that sounds pretty bad, Will. You don't know who the 3 men she got tested on are, do you? Of course. Wilbur pulled a small piece of paper out of a folder and held it out to me. I glanced through it cursorily and recognized 2 names. The frustrating thing, Mr. Ritter, is that Julie never asked me to give her a sample for the tests. From conversations, I figured it had something to do with spitting in a bottle, but I never did. I was able to look at some paperwork and it has my DNA and states that I am the father of twins, but I never gave a sample. Something's not right. I laughed to myself, sensing the irony. I had tried to deceive them about being Julie's father, and Julie was hiding the fact that Wilbur wasn't the father of the twins. My daughter turned out to be worse than her mother. I felt sorry for Wilbur, but he was in the same boat as me. Wilbur, are you happily married to my daughter? Honestly, sir, no. I think I made a big mistake, but I don't know what to do about it. Look at me, Wilbur. I made the same mistake 26 years ago and did nothing. Do you want to end up like me? Wilbur didn't answer anything. He knew the answer, but he didn't want to answer the question because he didn't want to hurt my feelings. What do you want me to do for you, Will? Nothing, I guess. I just needed someone to talk to. You've always struck me as a sensible person. If you have any ideas, please let me know. I thought about it for only a few seconds. I leaned across the table and looked my son-in-law in the eye. Run, Wilbur. Run. I don't know if he felt relieved or crushed. He stood up, smiled, and shook my hand. I got the feeling that I wouldn't see Wilbur Connor for a while yet. Good luck to him. John Ritter, you are the biggest hypocrite in the world. How can you give that kind of advice to your son-in-law when you don't even follow it yourself? Joyce seemed a little upset. You're right. You're very right. I'll admit it. I wish I had someone like me to talk to. Well, talk to me. I'll give you the same advice you gave him. I've watched you for the last 13 years, and I've never understood why you continue to let that harpy bully you. If ever there was a good time for you to do something about it, now is it. John Ritter, you have a week to make a decision, or I'm out of here. She had never slammed my office door before, but today she did. I got the feeling she had a businesslike attitude. Ralph Geiger and Jerry Trammell were 2 family friends. I realize now that they were better friends of my wife than I was. Those were the 2 names on the list from Wilbur that I recognized. I had no idea who Raymond Stanford was. Joyce cooled down and returned to the office with a fresh cup of coffee. She didn't apologize for her words, but at least she wasn't smacking me in the forehead anymore. I didn't need 2 women doing this. Okay, John, who are these guys on the list your brother-in-law gave you? I handed her a piece of paper across the table. 2 of them are old family friends, and I don't know the third. What do you want to do? Wouldn't it piss you off if I told you I don't want to do anything? Yes, I don't expect you to have a vendetta or anything, but I do expect you to get off your dead ass and do something. After 13 years, I've finally gotten you to pay attention to me, and I have no intention of backing down. If you don't come up with something, I will. Dinner that night was tense. I sensed that Mildred was concerned about something, but she didn't share it. We barely made it through the entire dinner, barely speaking. In fact, it was better than our usual conversations. She didn't have any smart remarks when I excused myself to go down to the bar. This time I actually went to the bar and got really drunk. The next morning at work, everything was going smoothly until Rodney came in. He put the mail on Joyce's desk and then came into my office and handed me a brochure. The look I threw at him served as an answer. I gave one to Joyce too. Since you both like to travel, I thought you might be interested in it. Walking out of the office, he smiled again. I smiled too, glancing at the brochure. It was a 4-week course for tractor-trailer drivers to qualify for a commercial driver's license. Joyce walked in, giggling to herself, with the course information in hand. Where does Rodney get this crap from? It's not fair, John. I don't think it's nonsense. In fact, I think it's interesting. You're out of your mind. I can't imagine either of us doing this, let alone both of us. I can see it. And actually, I think I look pretty good in jeans. Yeah, but what does that have to do with anything? Well, it's not like I can wear a skirt and drive a big truck, right? The conversation went on for almost an hour until she finally tired me out. Joyce and I took the day off, and 2 hours later we were enrolled in the Lehigh Institute's driver's school. We both had enough vacation and sick leave to finish the course and keep our jobs if it didn't work out. Things were not so rosy at home that evening. Wilbur had left Julie for the unknown expanse of the world. I was proud of the boy. Mildred, for some reason, thought I had something to do with his departure. I neither denied nor confirmed it. I went to a local bar and ended up at Joyce's. When I got home, Mildred was already in bed. The next few days, we were busy at work. Joyce had to train a temp for the next month, and I had to reschedule and reassign work to get everything done. Joyce set up an appointment for me with a divorce attorney and physically drove me there. I don't know on what grounds the lawyer ended up finalizing the divorce, but she wanted the names of the guys Wilbur had given me. I told Mildred that I would be working out of the office for the next few weeks. She didn't care one way or the other. Living near the school was easy, and it was a daily commute. One night, there was a bad thunderstorm, and Joyce and I didn't go home, but shared our first motel room. The 4 weeks went by too fast. I drove better than Joyce, but couldn't match her when it came to backing up and parking. We both ended up with CDLs and some good job offers. That night, we took Rodney to Outback for dinner. The more time I spent with Joyce, the more time I wanted to spend with her. I hadn't realized that companionship could be so enjoyable. I berated myself for not taking that step sooner. That night at dinner, I asked Mildred how the scoliosis research was going. Admittedly, I teased her a bit when I did so. The reaction was not quite what I expected. Instead of getting angry and lashing out at me, she calmly got up and left the room. An hour later, she told me that she needed to visit a sick friend. As she was walking out the door, I decided to visit my friend as well. I can't say the transition was smooth, but within a week, Joyce and I were working as drivers for one of the largest trucking companies out of Carlisle, Pennsylvania. Yes, I slipped away like a thief in the night. I didn't ask my wife anything. I quietly packed my things and disappeared. The divorce papers were delivered the next day. I moved all my stuff into Joyce's house, and Rodney was more than willing to stay home and forward mail in exchange for free rent. I can spend all day with Joyce, and so far we're not getting on each other's nerves. I'm sure we will have disagreements in the future, but so far, so good. We're not planning children, but if we have them, I hope they don't have scoliosis. Wilbur disappeared and was never seen again. Julie had to move in with her mother due to circumstances. From what I heard, things were not going well. A few months later, Joyce and I came to visit Jason in Colorado. We got along better than we ever had. I think he was glad I was finally getting my act together. He and Joyce had no problem getting along. To make things right, Jason promised to tell Mildred and Julie the truth about the DNA tests when he got home for Christmas.